Can I have one Johnson? I got this scared and got it scared all the time. My name is Ellen Jess Spears. Well, I need to give you some update. Give you some update. Um, Now yesterday I had talked to you about a 11-year-old boy was shot by the police after calling 911. So the 11-year-old boy, families, staged at sit at City Hall in Mississippi. Now this happened in Mississippi. On the, after the boy was shot by the police after calling 911 during a domestic disturbance, and the investigation is underway. So the family is calling on the officer, to be fired in charge. And they also the community member wants a police body cam, footage to be released. So good he is out of the he good he is still alive. He's out of the hospital and he's recovering very well. So her son called 911 after the ex-boyfriend had showed up to her house, and when the officer, arrives, the family, the police bam on the door like they was gonna knock it down, and they ordered everyone, to come outside, to come outside. So he went out, came out of his room, and when he came towards the living room, as soon as he got to the living room, he got shot. The police had shot. And then the parents said he didn't have anything in his hand. He didn't have no weapon. So by that same officer that told him to come out, he didn't have anything in his hand. The mother said. The mother said he didn't have no weapon. He didn't have anything. So the family has said they're not going anywhere until justice is served. So the family deserve answers. They deserve answers. So the police department has said they are not releasing their body camera video because it is part of the investigation. So they're still investigating. So that's why they're not releasing the camera yet. So they're protesting in Mississippi. So the police had ordered, everyone to come out. What been said, the boy came out with no weapon and the police shot him. So the family deserve answers. They want answers, because the child had got shot. He was the one that called the police for the domestic violence. So when he come out the room, they shot him. So I request the police who shot, this boy, to be fired and charged for this reckless shoot. So this is the update I had put out yesterday, and it came on my page about this situation. So I figured I'd just do an update on it. So I just talk about this morning. This baby was left in a bag, and the chick just left him in the woods. So the baby, so this baby case, the mother who was arrested this happened nearly 4 years ago. The newborn was found in a plastic bag in the woods. So for Forsyth, county sheriff officer announced, Karina, had been arrested in investigation of the child abandonment. This happened 4 years ago. So this had been 4 years investigation, finally a breakthrough. So this young woman had done something so incredible, to leave a baby in a bag in the woods. So this young woman was found on June the 6th, 2019, just before the thunderstorm hit this county. How the baby was found, they called it a divine intervention. And I feel like it is also a divine protection. So it was God, that this little girl had survived, that this little girl was still alive. That this little girl was in this bag in the woods. That the possums, the raccoon, the rats, none of the animals did not harm this little girl because the mighty power of God was watching over this little girl. Making sure she stay alive and making sure no animals eat her up. So there was people you know, that heard two teenagers that heard the sound in the woods. You know, they thought it was an animal, but then they walk away, start going home. They start realizing that it sounded like a baby crying. So yes, this is divine. This is divine protection. You know, two teenager girls who could let it. They couldn't let it go. No, when they went home, then they realized, it sounded like a baby crying, and they couldn't let it go, you know, and they thought it was a sound like a baby is crying, you know, to a daddy that they convinced, to their daddy too, they convinced, and they couldn't let it go, so they left out in the middle of the night to go to, and in the woods, it's dark already. Unless so I don't know, how they found the baby, but they went in the middle of the night and it's really dark in the woods, you know, and so when they check on the weird sound, in the woods, they discovered that it was a baby, and they called the sheriff right then and there. The first responding deputy was Terry, showing the infant what they should have been shown. So they stated, back then, they will bring this person, they said back then, they will bring the person to justice because at that time they ain't even found out who the person was. They ain't do no DNA test until 10 months later. So they said who when we find and this person we gonna make sure we bring this person to justice. So little did they know they were gonna be on this case for 4 years. Finally got a breakthrough. So 10 months ago they had a DNA test. Investigated that the sheriff officer was able to identify, the father of the baby. So they were able to utilize again the DNA test. They did it twice. One was one they found out it was the baby, the father. So they were able to identify the birth parent of the baby, and their goal was to identify who was responsible, for trying to kill this little baby. So every detective they had, there was a father they saw. They wanted someone who gonna have emotion, who gonna have feelings. So they wanted to get someone that already is a parent, would take this case real serious. So every detective was assigned to this case. Pyramid happened to be a parent of themselves. And that was good that they picked someone like that is a parent already. So the sheriff officer arrested Camille. She was 40 years old. They took a DNA test, and the evidence confirmed that she is the biological mother of this baby. So she cooperated with the detectives. That she had been charged with criminal intent, to commit murder, cruelty to children in the first degree, assault, reckless, abandonment, and other charges. She have other charges on her. So how someone can have ability to leave their own child in the bag and just leave it there? How can you? You know, so they are not going to discuss the motive. Because there's probably no motive. They're still doing the investigation. No more, no detail, can't be explained for how this happened and no more at this time because they're still investigating. Now, if you feel this going across the nation, if you feel like you can't afford to raise a child, okay, leave the child at the hospital. Leave the child at the police station. Leave the child at the fire station. So she did not leave her child at any of these locations. It would have been the best thing than put it in the bag in the wilderness. So the child not only was safe, on her of law, but any place, this child could have been found. This child was tied up in a plastic bag and thrown into the woods like a bag to be thrown away. You know, thank God that this baby was still alive. And this had happened like 4 years ago. Please, across the nation. Across the nation. If you know you are pregnant at the beginning of the stage, you know, and you decide you don't want it, you know, what you can do is the place of the location that had this thing. You know, you can either start finding someone, who wants the baby. Start finding some shelter that who will take the baby. You know, and the names that I had named, if you go ahead on through the 9 months, you know, leave it at the hospital, police station, or the fire station. You know, if you go to hold 9 months, do not kill the baby. Please do not kill the baby. Do not put the baby in a plastic bag and just leave it. Leave the baby at the hospital who will take care of that child. You know, take the take the baby and drop it off at the location that I stated. You know, and someone will take care of this child. Don't just leave the child like that. Leave it in the hospital, the police station, because they will take good care of the child until they put it in a shelter. You know, so we talked about this incident, the 11-year-old boy, just in Mississippi. You know, he called 911 because his mom ex-boyfriend come to the house and they had domestic violence, you know, disturbance at the house, and he was the one that called 911. You know, so when the police get there, they want everybody to come out. So when the boy start coming out towards the living room, they shot. You know, so thank God he's still alive and he's still recovering. You know, so we just talk about the baby. That this chick had the baby and took the baby out herself, put it in a bag and left it in the woods. And thank God the baby are still alive. You know, so the baby's still alive. So that's all the update news that I have. You know, y'all have a blessed night and I'll see y'all on the next video.